In this video, we're going to learn a little bit about Splunk. Now, what Splunk is basically is it's a data analysis tool, and it allows the deep analysis of machine data. Now, when I'm talking about machine data, I'm talking about machine-readable data and human-readable data generated from things such as servers and embedded devices. Usually log files. Now, log files can be pretty big. So what Splunk does is it allows the indexing and the research and the search and the data mining through these large files. Now, what Splunk does is it's able, through different algorithms and indexing techniques, to dig through terabytes of log files. We're talking a lot of data here, and not single log files as well. What we can do is we can take, maybe dozens of log files and put them in a zip file and then have Splunk go through all of them. Now, not only does Splunk go through flat files such as log files, it can be used with other data sources as well, such as OLTP or relational database management systems such as Oracle, SQL Server, or DB2. So we can use Splunk for relational databases such as Oracle. Now, in addition to transactional databases, we can use Splunk with NoSQL databases such as Cassandra, where we may want to look through key value pairs, or if we want to look through something like unstructured or semi-structured data, Splunk would be a really good tool for that. Now, also we can use Splunk with tools such as Hadoop. So if we're using like Redis or other data stores that were used for perhaps MapReduce purposes, we can use Splunk to actually look through that data and analyze that as well. Now, Splunk has grown and matured significantly since its earlier versions, so let's go over briefly the functionality that you can achieve in Splunk. It really allows for advanced and complex searches. You might look at it and say, well, what's the big deal? It looks over log files, but it has its own language, really, that what we can do is we can have something very similar to a query where we can actually do some advanced filtering and search for, complex patterns. Now, what we can do is after we get data back, we can save those results and we can save and export them. So if we wanted to, we can take the results of our search and export them into another tool if we wanted to do some additional data mining and perhaps some data visualization. Now, we can also take our search tags and fields and create them and save them. So what we can do is if we needed to do those searches later, we could kind of just bring up those tags and fields that we were searching on and then rerun them. And we can also have events and alerts where Splunk can actually tell us certain things that happen at certain times. And with all of this, we can create some pretty rich reports and some complex dashboards that kind of put the whole system together for us. Now let's take a look at where you can run Splunk. Now, Splunk can be run in the usual places, such as if you wanted to download it on a single machine, you'd be able to run Splunk there. You can also run Splunk on a cluster. If you wanted to spin up a cluster of machines running Splunk, it's certainly possible. Splunk can also be run in the cloud. You can spin Splunk up on Amazon, Microsoft Azure, VMware if you're using virtualization, and also Google Cloud. Now, your configurations can be customized. So if you had Splunk running on one platform, you can take the configuration file and customize it for Splunk to run on another platform. And also, it's important to point out that Splunk can be developed with the Splunk's Java and Python JDK. So it does have some fourth generation language support. If you wanted to extend the functionality of Splunk with your own code, you're able to do so. And also, Splunk uses the Splunk's IT intelligence service. The service intelligence allows Splunk to take data and visualize it and make predictions about different patterns it might see while performing future searches. Now, Splunk comes in different versions depending on the functionality you want and your wallet, of course. Now, the 4 versions are Splunk Free, which is the free version, of course, Splunk Lite, Splunk Enterprise, which is a more robust version of Lite, and Splunk Cloud, which is the Splunk version that runs with zero configuration, which runs in the cloud. Now, each of these versions have their pluses and minuses and have different variable support systems insofar as the support that you get from these and the kind of functionality that you get. For example, Splunk Lite is free, but you get a little bit more than you get with Splunk Free. And also, Splunk Enterprise is free to a certain point, and then after the trial version runs out, it goes back to a Splunk Free license, or you could buy individual licenses for it. Most people will download Splunk Enterprise because you get unlimited searches, and also after a certain period of time, what happens is Splunk Enterprise just reverts to a Splunk Free license, or what you can do is you can buy different licensing for it. And Splunk Cloud, again, is really the same as Splunk Enterprise with some additional cloud functionality included. Now here, let's just take a quick look at where you can install Splunk. Now you can install Splunk on AWS if you have an EC2 instance, and also AWS has some services and some plugins that you can use to run Splunk. Now also, if you're using virtual servers, DigitalOcean is also a good suggestion. You could spin up a Windows machine or a Linux machine on DigitalOcean and get Splunk running that way. And also, you have some options of running Splunk in Microsoft if you're running Microsoft Azure. Now, the most popular way to install Splunk is the bring your own server, where you just download Splunk on a local machine and run it there. Now, also what you can do is if you're using Dockerization or containers, you can have Splunk spun up in Docker, and also if you're using Vagrant or like Vagrant Up, what you can do is you can use virtual server spun up in Vagrant running Splunk as well.